Hello and welcome to another video about Europa Universalis 5. Yesterday, the devs of the game did a bit of a Discord Q&A where a bunch of people sent in questions and a bunch of those questions got answered. Obviously, not every question got answered. But I've gone through and picked out a few that I would like to share with you and talk about and all of that. I haven't brought in every question, not all of them I think necessarily to answer, but either way, we got a few, and let's start. Have a look at some of them. So, question by Vox Maris: any mechanics you regret adding but now can't remove due to player reliance or engine compatibility issues? And an answer by Johan here was that he thought maybe making the map smaller would maybe have been better for performance. The map is like quite large compared to EU4. I remember I did a post a long time ago, though the idea of trying to find that now would be crazy, where I did a comparison between EU5 and EU4, and if my screen, the entirety of the screen right now is EU5, then EU4 was like maybe that big. There was like 16x or something times bigger pixel-wise. So yeah, I guess maybe some different sizing may have helped a bit. Either way, let's move on. What ideas does the dev team have for improving the Dynastic gameplay in 1.4 and beyond? Do they include changes to AI behavior too? So St. Dave here answering, improving Dynastic gameplay is important to EU5. It's the main catalyst of so many conflicts, especially in the first half of the period. For 1.4, they're looking into betrothals, and 1.5, which is going to be when we get the Old Alliance DLC, it's going to be centered around France and the 100 Years' War. Or at least that's what I'm assuming, because 100 Old Alliance, that's France and Scotland, so I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of France and the 100 Years' War, so I feel like this is, I don't know if it is for sure, but it seems like semi-confirmation that 1.5 is Old Alliance. Right? I feel I'm not making stuff up there. Either way, 1.5 is going to be centered around France and the 100 Years' War, so they're going to develop Dynastic play as well. I'm looking forward to that. I think that's a good thing to do. I am somebody who, despite personal unions in EU5 being a little bit I still prefer them to EU4's. I don't think EU4's personal unions were remotely good at all. So more depth in the Dynastic gameplay, I think, is definitely something I look forward to. Making marches a diplomatic focus reward for age transition does not feel too much of a limiting factor. Marches are a core medieval mechanic to defend Borderlands. How well does it go to pick as pick rate versus admin focus or mill focus if Paradox get the player stats? So what he's talking about here is when you reach 1342, you get the option between your admin, dip, and your mill focus. And your dip focus is the one that comes with marches as a vassal type. The problem is admin focus is just better in so many ways. Admin focus is the one that I think I pick like 99% of the time. And it is just simply better, and dip is probably the weakest of the three. So I do agree that, I don't think I've ever played with marches because I'm not picking dip ever, really. In the roadmap, they've mentioned a new thing called vassal contracts in the 1.5 update, where they're looking into a general reworking of subject mechanics in that patch. He's going to make a note to ensure they consider the current state of march subject type to see if they can design something more historical while still fulfilling the design intention of unlocking cooler things through the ages. Unlocking them, fine. Like, make marches unlockable as a technology, but don't put it behind your, exclusive focus. I think would be the best option there. We have this, which is sort of a two questions asked about the same thing. Are there any long-term plans to add new situations once the ones that are already in the game are all fully functional? For example, I feel there's potential for a late-game balance of power one based on a similar situation by that name they saw in a Reddit post about a mod. 90% of the focus on regarding situations is to keep improving, as they did with the Guelphs and Ghibellines and Italian Wars in 1.3, but they've already started working on a new situation for Across the Pillars, and they want to keep adding more in the future. And then similarly, they're talking about that same mod. Smaller powers unite to contest big hegemons like Great Britain in real life. Do you plan on adding some similar system to that? And Johan here saying he saw that mod as well, and he read a post about it this morning. It's very interesting and similar to a Concert of Europe that they've talked about for a future DLC patch and beyond what is currently in the Grand Voyage, though. I like that they look at mods and implement things that they see in popular mods. I was talking with Glorp, the guy who makes the UI that I really like, which I'm currently using, though you can't really tell from the screen that I'm currently on. I was talking with Glorp yesterday about the basically the need for Glorp to be used as a mod. And of course, we're getting the situation where we're going to start being able to earn achievements with mods turned on. And personally, I thought, oh, well, I was against it, but I also really like Glorp UI, so maybe I'll do some hybrid system. I ain't going to use mods that make the game trivial and easy, but I will maybe use Glorp to get UI stuff and mods and all of that and still get achievements. But then Glorp was saying he doesn't really see the need for a lot for Glorp UI to be a thing for most people, because a lot of the things that he has been adding into the game through his mod, Paradox has already kind of taken and put into the game anyway, so the need for it is getting less and less as the game gets better. But I still think there's some things that Glorp adds that is just, necessary for me personally. Anyway, moving on, we've got more. Any plans to add more events for the Eastern Roman Empire? The first 100 to 150 years are interesting and have a fair number of events, but after that things become rather shallow. It feels a bit strange that it received its own DLC and yet seems to have less content than countries like France or England. I would disagree with this. I don't think it feels less at all. I would say that most people don't really go to 1836, and a lot of the England content is arse loaded. It's loaded at the end. Well, it's pretty spread nicely, actually, to come to think of it. And the same with France. It's spread out, but most of their content, it's in for the Romans, it's very concentrated in that early period, because like this country died 120 years after the start of the game, less than 120 years after the start of the game. So yeah, the content that there will be, stuff for, and the narrative that they're going for with the Romans is, recovering lost territory, recovering lost glory, all that kind of stuff. But after you get to that point, the content that you have after that is going to be pure fantasy, right? Anything that you add to the Roman Empire after the first 123 years or 117 years or whatever it was, is going to be fantasy. And any content you add that is pure history within that time, a lot of it is going to be fantasy anyway, because it's all, historically that state was on crumbling and declining and pain and hurt and suffering. And that's not something that people will really want to play through, right? They get over the initial struggle and then start doing well, and they feel great about that. That's what you kind of want. So I don't know. I don't know where you would add stuff here that isn't pure LARP. Regarding the Erie, the challenge they face, which is there's no historical content to work with after 1453, sadly. However, they plan to add some new content for the Romans in 1.4, potentially using a new content delivery system. What that new content delivery system is, I don't know. Content delivery system is things like situations, it's things like dynamic historic events, it's things like disasters, things like bureaucracies, all these different ways to give flavor to countries. I think probably we're now also in a situation where the urban rights are going to be considered content delivery systems. I don't know. Don't know about that one, but maybe. On that same topic, though, of LARP, one that is maybe a little bit less positive about it. In the Q&A video, a user asked if the LARP scene in the Fate of the Phoenix would be something we could expect in future DLCs. It was taken in the video as asking about all history content more broadly. I don't think it answered the spirit of the question, and I'd like to ask it again more specifically. And I went and I found that very question. It seems that LARPiness has taken priority over historical accuracy. Will this become a consistent thing for future DLCs?
It seems that the LARPiness has taken priority over historical accuracy. Will this become a consistent thing for future DLCs?
Well, the nature of Fate of the Phoenix and the focus on Byzantium, which obviously fell in 1453, that means that we had a much more limited scope to work with in terms of content. For the countries we've got planned in the future, they obviously have much longer periods of activity, so we can explore in much more depth in those areas. However, we're always going to be wanting players to do different playthroughs with the same country. So there'll always be some alternative content here, or some, maybe that country had an ambition that wasn't quite fully realized. That would be really fun to explore.
I think it's a pretty decent answer, all things considered. But Stylish Snake goes on to say, should we expect more content which is pure fantasy, such as first century form of Hellenism, returning as seen in Fate of the Phoenix, or will future content, historical or otherwise, be more grounded in the period in future DLCs? For example, would Fate of the Phoenix include Hellenism in the form it takes in-game if it were designed today? Would it be more work to make those mechanics reflect the 14th century Platonic Hellenism as it's described as in the prior Tinto talks prior to the DLC's release? Would there be as much content around returning to the Rome of centuries past, or would there be more focus on the empire of the period the game is set in? And I think I'm very much on record as saying I didn't like the heavy larpiness of the early design for Fate of the Phoenix. There are a lot of, I want to become, ancient Roman Empire, I'm going to wear a toga and all that kind of crap. And they did roll back a lot of that. They did make it more grounded. I haven't yet done a Hellenic run, so I don't know if I can say how much of the larpiness is there for that path, but I don't know. Either way. So Dave responds, in hindsight, they should have designed a greater focus on content for the historical Platonic Hellenism, as they got a little feedback that the balance of that religion felt too close towards the LARP. I think players will find that the next round of DLCs will feel more grounded in historical content. However, there's also not a solid line between pure fantasy and pure history in a game like this, so I won't say there will never be any fantasy ever again, and they want players to have multiple routes available to play with. I think in the video he basically says something similar as well, right? Some countries had an ambition that wasn't fully realized. I mean, the Romans' ambition was to survive and continue existing, and that wasn't realized at all. So any content you add for them that is pushing towards that era of, survival, it's obviously going to be a little bit fantasy, unfortunately. Anyway, next question. Are you planning on running more open betas in the future, or is that only possible when a free update is released without an accompanying DLC? They feel open betas have proven themselves to be an important part of the feedback process, so they're definitely going to be doing more. There are certainly some more challenges with doing an open beta when there is an accompanying DLC, and this prevented us from doing an open beta with Update 1.2. That being said, they're actually very close to solving those issues, so the aim is to have the free 1.4 patch in open beta, and hopefully take it from there in the future. Awesome. More open betas is a great idea. I think it's clear that they've been working. I think if 1.3, as it stood when it was first released in open beta, was the release patch, that would not have been good, because that patch was really quite awful. The smallpox and the economy systems were just straight broken. So that being in beta definitely softened the harsh blow that would have done to the game reputation, the rating, all of that kind of crap. But also just the fact that we're able to give feedback and shape the game going forward is in itself a pretty big benefit, right? There has been every single day a post on the forums talking about, okay, this is the 8th day of the beta. Today they're going to be talking about estates and new estate interactions. Give feedback upon those. those new estate interactions where I am, purchasing stability for satisfaction, or legitimacy for satisfaction, or getting a new parliament during war, and all this kind of stuff is something that people are giving feedback, especially on the balance of it. Does it feel good to play? Is it overpowered? Is it this, that, and the other? And, through that feedback, very direct feedback as well, specific feedback on certain topics, I think the game is going to be getting better from that. So yeah, I'm in favor. Definitely in favor. Next question. There's been a lot of grumbling about the core gameplay loop, integrating subjects, eco, etc. What plans do you have to improve the gameplay loop? You on here, we'll continue working on this constantly, but there will not be any radical changes. They have toyed with making subject integrations using cabinet actions, and have designed proposals for more gradual status of integration and cores on locations, but nothing for this year. That's a very interesting point, and I think something that would have solved the issue of vassal swarms being too overpowered, right? Now they've nerfed vassal swarms into the dirt, so I don't think this is a good idea. But back when it was a case of I release a lot of single province vassals in order to have them culture convert, religiously convert, and then integrate, and none of that used as a cabinet member, so my cabinet members are free to do other things. If using a cabinet member was necessary to integrate those vassals, then I feel like all of those benefits you get from the vassals probably could have stuck around. I don't know if they're going to roll back those changes to vassals if they add this, but if it's this and vassals, then vassal gameplay would just be straight up dead, 100%. Which obviously I don't want, and I don't think is something that anyone wants. But yeah, this would hurt even more. I mean, we already have people like Playmaker saying that vassals using them at all is a throw, right? It is just not a good thing to do at all. I remember when I was playing my the Roman game in Fate of the Phoenix, he hopped in my chat while I was streaming and saying, oh, you've taken all these vassals, that's a throw, you've done the wrong thing, etc. And you know what? He's probably right. If they also use cabinet actions to integrate at this point, dead gameplay. Do not do. But also, I'd totally be in favor of you rolling back to having some kind of more powerful vassals that do stuff for you. That would be kind of cool too. Anyway, moving on. Question from Lemon Cake. Why April 1337 and not January 1337? Because you end up in a weird state of just under 500 years of gameplay due to that. So, starting on the 1st of January throws players into a visually gloomy start with winter mechanics that can be quite harsh. Since a lot of players spend quite a lot of time before and pausing, we believe a spring time would be more pleasant first impression and less limiting in experience the opening moves of the game. It's a pretty simple explanation, really. The reason is not gameplay related. It's their impression related, and that's fair enough, because you know what, spring looks kind of nice, and especially if you're going to be playing in Sweden, being able to see grass and stuff instead of everything just being covered in snow. Yeah, no, that's a fairly decent point. It is a fairly decent point. Anyway, next question. What do you guys devs look for when determining what a successful run through looks like? Are there certain events like Spanish Union, Austria's Emperor, Russia forming, fall of Constantinople, etc., or just empire formation, Ottoman, Spain, Chinese successor state, etc., that you look for? If so, what are they? And if not, have you considered adding a baseline historical outcome to test new patches against? So yeah, this is a question that keeps coming back again and again, because I guess people are just never satisfied with the answers that they get. In the nightly AI test runs, they look at the average results for all important countries, and they also track a few other things, like situation outcomes, etc. The baseline is how similar is the situation to real history, and which are the greatest divergences. Now we think we have a more stable AI, and we've started working more granularly with AI personalities, dynamic area preferences, and more micro adjustments. As an example of this was the adjustments done for the 100 Years' War for 1.3. They tracked the results for 2 or 3 weeks before the release of the open beta, gathering an approximate distribution of 60% win rate for France, 40% for England, with France usually making a comeback and consolidating the region by the 1800s on 80 to 90% of runs. Results that they considered in line with both the expectations and those of the players. I'm happy with these percentages, honestly, especially if You know, the 40% for England comes with a caveat of, you know, maybe half of those runs being France in the long run anyway. I'm okay with those. I think if that is applied to basically every historical pillar that people look for, you know, Spain, Ottomans, etc., then that kind of historical accuracy percentage, it's a good target. It's a good target. Because I don't want any of them, literally none of them, not a single one of these historical pillars should have a 100% outcome, right? And I feel like before, maybe 1.2, 1.1, 1.0, maybe not 1.0, 1.1 and 1.2 though, the win rate for France was pushing 99 to 100% because they never lost to England. And that was bad, right? I feel like England should have won sometimes. And it's the same for the other big pillars as well. I don't want to always see Ottomans being dominant. I don't want to always see a Spain formation. Or if I do see a Spain formation, maybe it doesn't have to always be Aragon. Maybe it can be in, you know, a Portuguese annexation instead. All these different things could have happened plausibly. Like the game isn't a historical simulator; it's a historical plausinator. It's a plot. Historical plausibility is more important than historical accuracy, in my opinion, in a game like this. So that's my opinion at least. And you know what? It's good. It's good that they've changed things for the 100 Years' War. Are they planning on further updates to the map? Specifically wondering about RGO distribution, as some goods like marble and medicaments have massive oversupply just from RGO distribution alone. Is this something that might be changed for the future? Any possible new goods being added after camels? Yes and yes. On the one hand, they keep doing a balancing of goods in the setup, and something they'll be adjusting in 1.3.4 is adding an additional source of iron in Manchuria and some more horses in India. On the other, they're looking towards adding some more new goods, but nothing is decided yet. I have a couple of questions. Can we have more iron in Europe as well? And also, a question for people watching, what goods do you think are missing from the game? I'm curious. Specifically RGOs, what RGOs are missing from the game. I would be interested to hear that. Moving on, we have a question here from Dylan. Are there any plans to add the Vatican City as a separate physical location for the papacy to prevent the Pope from constantly being exiled into Germany when its physical lands in Italy are taken over by an ambitious Italian polity? Let's just say Naples. We don't need to worry about it's just Naples. I think I have a great suggestion for this that should be implemented, and it's not something that only I've come up with, but many people have come up with the same solution to this problem. The issue with the Papal States exile is something they're aware of, and they've bandied around various solutions in the office. I'm sure this is going to be one of them, I would hope. It seems an obvious solution to me. No plans to add a Vatican City location. That's fine. You don't need to add a Vatican City location. You can just make it so that when the Pope is annexed, instead of it becoming, you know, a wandering German, you know, taking over Ansbach or something, or like in my current multiplayer where I'm playing Italy, the Pope is currently up here in Valcassari, which is quite funny to me. Just make it so that it becomes a building-based country in Rome. Add a building called Vatican, and it will become a building-based country. That seems just like such an easy solution to me. And have gameplay for all the Catholics to, I don't know, donate their cathedrals to it, so the cathedrals become their buildings that they can build in other countries. That seems like just like the most obvious solution to me. Building-based country, so if you are in Italy, you could have the entirety of Italy, and then the Vatican is there in Rome as a building-based country. Is that not such an elegant solution? I don't see any issue with this. None whatsoever. Anyway, that's my solution. Moving on though, next question. Will there be a rework for Morocco with its Tunis annexation events? Currently, if you do it, you get all of the former vassals of Tunis, making all your vassals disloyal. Yes, they're currently in the process of reviewing and adding content for the Maghreb, which will come in the 1.4 Rio Salado update, along with Across the Pillars. So that's when Across the Pillars is 1.4. The initial wars of Morocco will likely be adjusted so they resemble a bit the status of the Scaligeri War, as per the early feedback received in 1.3, as they think the players have appreciated the changes and content for it. Scaligeri War, actually kind of fire, and Verona might just be the strongest country in the game right now. Not in the game, in Italy. Huge buff to Verona. Next up. What's the biggest thing on the agenda right now in terms of what to fix and what to balance? Economy will always be ongoing, but for us, they want the performance improves dramatically further than what 1.3.2 currently is. I found 1.3.0 to be quite bad performance-wise. 1.3.2 is definitely a big improvement, so congrats to the team on doing that. I mean, 1.3 is something they did promise to fix in performance in. Hopefully we get more performance upgrades as the beta rolls on. We're going to have this for another 2.5, 3 weeks maybe. So we'll see how it goes from there. Will decisions be introduced in a future update? Reasons why? Simple answer, yes. We are going to be getting decisions in a future update. Good! Decisions were great in EU4. Big fan of them. They especially were great for mods, especially multiplayer mods, where I can, have decisions where I can hover over to give me information about my country. Not decisions to click to do stuff, but decisions that will tell me, oh, this event has fired, or this is how much I've dev'd, that kind of stuff. But that was always, super useful in multiplayer mods, and just in general, like, decisions to do various things were just super useful in EU4. Personally, clicking a decision to become a formable country, I prefer to the current system of, what we have in EU5. It doesn't feel as good to do it in EU5. Just gonna put that one out there. Any plans for changing army supply mechanism? No major changes. They're happy with the system. I'm not. I very much am not. And I'll give you a reason why. Let's just move you all the way up there. Yesterday, I was playing a little bit in India, right? I was playing as Vijayanagar. And as Vijayanagar, at one point, I went to war with Delhi. I had more troops. I had like 60,000 levies. They had like 40,000. I had more troops. So I was like, you know what? I'll go to war. And when I went to war, I was aiming for this location here. Malnad, right? Mudhol is the capital of this state of Madhad, right? And there is no fort there. So I'm thinking, okay, I'll march my army in to Mudhol from Darwar, occupy it. I've occupied the fullness of the war goal, and I'm going to be happy. I starved to death despite bordering my own land. The supply was not enough to bring food from Darwar, which had a full stockpile, to Mudhol, because of reasons. Because I don't know the reasons, but I was starving here. I couldn't march my army to here without starving. And yeah, I occupied the provincial capital so I could get food from this location. It had like 50 food total, or maybe 350 food total. It was a really small amount of food total in this province. So sieging this fort is impervious. It is impossible to siege it. No matter how many troops you bring there, you will starve before you get through this fort. Absolute awful time playing as Vijayanagar. Whether it's because the provinces are larger than in Europe, or I don't know. I don't know what the reason is, but this was just intensely cope, and I did not enjoy myself. I do think the previous, maybe it's better when you have regulars, right? Maybe the current food and supply system now works when you have regulars, because you can use supply wagons. And sure, if you have supply wagons, you fix your problem. But right now, you know, at the start of the game, you only have levies. I don't think you just should starve day one. Like, it's not in a good spot, in my personal opinion. Anyway, I have more questions. I have 3 more questions. Balkan and Italian advances added by 1.2 and 1.3 beta have followed a pattern of 1 per age per tag, and 1 per age per culture with a few exceptions. This is intended to be the design going forward, with most nations having 1 tag-based and 1 culture-based unique advance per age, excluding shared advances from other sources like religion and government. And Pavi saying, he thinks so. As far as the feedback they received from the community, it's positive. They started working on this to be able to expand the number of cultures and countries having unique advances, while keeping the balance and cohesion in the advanced creation. Expect more hundreds of new unique advances for Iberia and Maghreb forthcoming in 1.4 Rio Salado. I think it's crazy that specifically Iberia would be getting more advances, because of all of the countries, these guys already have like 2 per age. Just for being Castilian. Country bonuses, 2 per age. And that's just Castilian, right? The Aragonese also have a bunch. They also have a bunch of Catalan advances. Navarra, Basque has 24. Basque has 3 per age. And these used to be absolutely crazy good as well. Like, much more. This used to be like 5. That was 15. Some of these advances they cooked so hard with them. Even Portugal's got, you know, quite a bunch. So I don't know. Seeing more for specifically Iberia seems crazy to me. But of course, you know, there's only 1 advance for Maghrebi. So yeah, definitely give them some more stuff. Definitely, these guys could definitely use more stuff. Andalusia only has 1. And, you know, it could definitely use more. Crown Power and Cultural Influence is pretty good, though. That building is not bad at all. But it is only in the capital. It's 1 building. 1 building for your entire culture. Other than that, go screw yourself, I guess. So seeing more for this, amazing. I don't think Iberia needs it, but they're gonna get it anyway, so why not? Alright, moving on. EU4 got the amazing option to return core from a friendly nation. This way, if an ally eats land where you have a core, you're not forced to break 200 years of partnership. We see new fun buttons for the diplomatic screen thanks to DLC or free patch, and I have no idea what dev this is, but fun buttons are fun. Currently, you can ask to return cores only in the peace treaty, so it's only fair they add a diplomatic option for that as well. I love that. You know, seems like a pretty simple ask. Give a diplomatic option to give me land that I have cores. Seems reasonable. And hopefully that gets added sooner rather than later. All right, final question. Is there anything you can tell us about how a major expansion may look like in the future in terms of quantity of additions? So it's something we've kind of had the answer for before, but a Chronicle pack like Across the Pillars and Old Alliance will feel roughly double in value compared to what we presented in the Immersion pack, Fate of the Phoenix. But what exactly an expansion pack in EU5 will look like is not fully known to us yet, as we don't have anything like that in the current roadmap. It will probably feel like a big Chronicle pack in terms of content, but with additional high-value extras like a new bookmark or a handful of larger features. This is one more hint that we're getting. Well, it's not really a hint at this point. It's kind of confirmed that they're going to be doing it. They're going to give us new start dates. And so we're going to get an expansion pack in the future. It's probably going to come with an extra bookmark. And I don't think they know yet what date they're going to go for. I think it was in the video they did say that they'd thought of every date between 1444 and 1836 for like what could be their start dates for like a second bookmark. But I don't know. Personally, I am still kind of against new bookmarks, and it feels like it does feel like a little bit of a Panic Stations kind of change. Like, we're not going to do new bookmarks because it's so you know, dev work intensive, and the game's kind of struggling, so now they're going to do a new bookmark. I don't know, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. But I know a lot of people will be very happy with like a 1492. You know, we're getting into the colonialism situation early rather than, you know, going through the early game and the early game economy struggles, jumping straight into something that people find fun in these games, maybe, but I don't know. I have my reservations. But anyway, thanks all for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Before I leave you, there is one last thing. In this open beta feedback thread, there is another thing, a weekend beta mini forum where you can give some more opinions, basically saying how you rate your experience in the 1.3 open beta compared to 1.2. And also, if you could prioritize one thing for the dev team to take a closer look at, what would it be? In performance, probably would be for me. But yeah, if you have thoughts and opinions on 1.3, go here. I'll put a link to this in the description. Go down here, click this, and you know, you got 3 days. Go give some feedback. Anyway, thanks all for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Toodaloo.